And then in number 3 there, the concern generally accepted by the medical community. And I think that's kind of a loaded question right now in today's environment. And again, it's why I said earlier, I'm concerned that this is a very high hurdle when you're including phrases like that in order to get new forms. And again, just like mentioning lotions, if we had rectal suppositories, those things, would that be, and again, these are products that are very familiar and utilized by patients. Sure. And my concern is if we don't address them here, that if that falls under that bucket, good luck getting any of this approved anytime soon.
And these all have to, this is information that has to be submitted. Any one of these independently isn't necessarily dispositive. We're going to have to look at these applications in the aggregate, right? But there does need, we would be remiss if we didn't at least ask,
oh, sure.
What do physicians say about this when they've had patients who are administering these other forms, these alternate forms that are being proposed? We do need to know that information.
So, as a physician, I do have some questions on this point, to both of your points on here. And before I get to those questions, my first one is on C1, the scientific clause that you have in there. How did you come up with that concept? Did you base on any comparables, or?
So this is similar to what we saw in petitions for other states. And it's not unlike what you've seen for like expansion of conditions in other states as well.
So on method of administration and routes of administration that I see my patients use for various things, let's say, for example, we wanted to try like a intranasal, whatever. Would that count on the auspices of inhalational or vaporization, or would it require a new form petition?
That would likely require a new form of petition. So that's not in the bill currently.
Okay. So then talking about oral stuff, let's say somebody wanted to use it sublingually, like a sublingual lozenge or something. Would that count as oral because it's in the mouth, or would it require a new petition?
I'm sorry, can you say it one more time?
Let's say you took like let's say you had like a lozenge or something like that, and you put it under your tongue for sublingual administration. It's in the mouth, it's oral. Would that count under oral, or is it a new petition?
If it's a lozenge, it would count as oral. It would probably be an edible in that particular case. It would count as
an edible. So would the same thing apply for like buccal absorption of THC products, or would that, because the absorption is different than swallowing it, right?
Potentially, and again, we're going to have to review these for when we assign the product identifier for each product that comes through. So I'm concerned about maybe giving a blanket authorization.
No, I understand. I'm just trying to understand the concept, because oral, I didn't know if that implied swallowing, going through the GI tract, or sublingual buccal absorption. Because then the math may be different too, as far as how you do all that.
And that's, I think, as a board member who potentially have these come before us, I think we understand the concepts that Justin talked about, the whole 4 components of drug metabolism, and we'll have to just apply that knowledge and that science to say, wait a minute, this is not subject to first pass, or this is a direct pathway to the bloodstream. And so I think I appreciate the petition contents, but I think what we also have to realize is, as Justin said early on, is that being nimble in this space is what's incumbent upon the agencies that are going to be administering this.
I think that's exactly my point about being nimble for potential other routes of administration that could be good. So my concern, and maybe Ted's too, is that this bar may be high. I don't know.
One thing too that's worth noting is that these other forms that are being referenced here are forms that are common really for common forms of administration for other items, for other medical purposes. And that is data that can be provided under the petition process. It doesn't necessarily have to be specific to marijuana. The evidence that's available with respect to marijuana, we definitely want, but that can be bolstered by other, just as we did here. We looked at fentanyl, we looked at buprenorphine for patches. We would accept the same type of information for alternate forms and methods of administration.
So,
That's helpful to know, actually.
so to your point, for buccal absorption, we have evidence around how that works,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, I understand now.
Yeah.
For some reason, I had in my mind it had to be marijuana specific. That actually does change my opinion.
Yes. How did you arrive at the 90-day supply? Is that flexible? And for terminal persons, you know, how do you maneuver that, or how did you arrive at those numbers?
For the tiering of the plant material?
Yeah.
So that came from two pieces of information. The first was the clinical data that was supported by the expert panel, and then also from best practices in other states. So we took a look at both of those pieces of information and ended up merging what we found, and we came up with 6 ounces for tier 1 plant material, which is up to 23% THC content, and 4 ounces for 90-day supply of plant material that is over 23% THC.
And the other part of that question, is there exception to that someplace if a terminally ill? I mean, I obviously I'm limited on my science here, but you know.
There currently is not an exception for terminally ill patients, no.
But that's the type of thing that throughout this process we've been receptive to feedback, and we'll see where that takes us.
So it'd be a policy in-house that you folks would put together.
Well, I think it depends on the feedback and if there's a call for it, and a need, probably more accurate than a call, and I think we will be nimble, we will be creative, and I think we have to be careful with not putting the physicians in a spot. But I would be confident that we could, if it's the right thing to do, I think there's a way to figure it out.
I would agree with the science doesn't seem like it's quite there, and then my little trip to Denver, I couldn't tell the difference, with all due respect, between medical and recreational marijuana out there, and that's kind of like the old Wild West, and that's kind of why I asked that question, so thank you.
Without putting Justin on the spot, I think we were thoughtful about who we put on our panel, and we had hospice and palliative experts on the panel. I think to help us understand, as that science emerges, maybe we begin to see the emergence of therapy that might escalate an end-of-life care. But I think we've got the right people with their eyes on it. So if it becomes an emerging piece of science to say end-of-life care is taking us in a different pathway, and our end-of-life practitioners have opinions about that, I think we're going to be in a spot where we can try to address that through revision or re-looking at those as time goes on. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, Marcy.
With that, it sounds like we do have a really astute panel that's been looking at this. Will this panel continue on to do additional work?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when I asked the folks to come together for this, I took them through this assignment. Now, is there other duties as assigned? I don't know. So I think the board will take that under advisement, because they really functioned as an ad hoc subcommittee of the board. I think, as we're hearing discussion today, that it would not be a bad idea to keep folks available and keep that expertise available to us. So I'm not going to commit the panel to further specific work, but I do know that we can reach out. Yeah.
Question?
Yep, Nancy.
Slide 8, where we have 13 states, and our proposed number is 6 or 9 or 6 and 4?
Yes. Yes.
6 and 4. So what were the other 15 states? Isn't there 28?
So this was a sampling of the states that we looked at. What we did not look at the established medical programs, or sorry, the established recreational programs.
No, but there's 28 medical.
Mm-hmm. And several were added this past fall. We started reviewing some of this data before those were implemented. But but you'll see that most of them, these are the trends. This is what a general sampling from those states are. And if you,
What
I
is
can get you those
California?
other numbers, I'm happy to
I
get
just
you those other
wondered if
numbers.
the 15 that were excluded are way different, or are they?
Most states are doing 2.5 ounces for a 14-day supply.
So I have to do the math there.
That's where you're seeing about 16. So that's like Illinois.
16.
And again, that's what you can get in a 14-day period.
Thank you.
But that 2.5% doesn't take into account the THC level, is that correct?
It does not take into account THC content, no.
I think it's fair to say that, as Steve alluded to, I think Ohio is taking a bit more deliberate approach to that concept. And I think time will tell how well we can deal with that. But it does try to reflect the variety that's out there. And so a gram is not a gram is not a gram, right? And so we're trying to deal with that, yeah. Yep, sorry,
So
Nancy.
then I have a follow-up with a math question. Last night I couldn't make the math work, and it's probably me, so bear with me. It was on page 3 of the document that you sent us in the email, and it was 3796-8204B1, where it says 1/10 of an ounce of plant material, and then I would multiply that by 90 days, I think, and get 9 grams. But then when I looked up, it said 6 grams over 4 grams, and ounces. Oh. Well, geez, how does a person
Gary's comment
You can see how hard it is, yeah.
We have metric interspersed with non-metric, and that's, we have to just be sure that we can clearly make those conversions.
Wouldn't there be 2 numbers there based on what tier though?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing that jumped out for me, that if there are 2 separate tiers, there'd have to be 2 separate numbers.
I'm sorry?
If there were 2 separate tiers, there'd have to be 2 separate numbers there.
Yeah, this would be the high end.
Okay.
The highest 10? But 1/10 of 1 ounce times 90 is 9 ounces. But up above, it says ounces, 6 ounces and 4 ounces. 1/10 of 1 ounce is a daily dose, B1, times 90 days, be 9 ounces, I think. Yes.
I can go back and take a look at it when
I think
have
if
a
I'm 1/10 of 1 ounce.
We'll get a math checker.
Times 90.
I can double check. Yeah, I can double check
Times 90
that.
days is 9 ounces. But then when I go back up to A1, little a, no more than 6 ounces or no more than 4 ounces. Well, which one? And how do I divide that? You know, I have 9. Am I going to get 4 of these and 3 of these, or 5 of these and 4 of these? That was my, because nothing came to 9. Nothing came straight to 9.
We can go back and take a look
And
at
if
it.
it was unclear to me, maybe it would be unclear to others as well.
And I think one of the reasons why that's such an important concept is because clearly we're going to have to consider how to aggregate all of these, right? I mean,
Yes.
some people are not always going to want to just have plant material. They're going to want to have some extracts. They're going to want to have, and I think the really tough work that you guys did, and I applaud you for it, is getting down to what those daily doses are, right? What those single daily allotments are, and part of that concern is too that in each level of that, you've got a lot of cost in presenting that package in those single doses so that you can aggregate the way that you're talking about to come up with what a 90-day supply would be across different products and different treatment modalities. And so to me, from a patient perspective, have we done any cost studies on what it's going to cost to present those type of forms? Because this is entirely unique in the industry.
Can I add on to Nancy's point? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
The question is around cost.
Oh, yeah,
Well,
right,
I don't think we're saying that everything has to be packaged in a one-day supply. The package has to be visible as a one-day supply. Do you see the distinction?
Yeah,
And
and we've talked about this. I think the concern is in the dispensary rules and the way they interact with the cultivator rules and the processing rules. It sounds like it, if I understood it correctly, that it does have to come in each whole day dose supply.
In a whole day unit. And some of these, and I want to remind everybody, some of these are rounded numbers too.
Can I add
So
on
they
to
won't
that?
all fit neatly.
Actually, speaking to that point, in terms of safety, which I think was what Nancy was bringing up, just for consistency for the patient, when you're talking about like B3, which says 50 milligrams of THC contained in, maybe this is where it becomes more precise language, because you wouldn't want to say contained in an oil, tincture, capsule, tablet, edible, because as Justin pointed out, each of those would offer a different rate of absorption. A different amount of drug would be absorbed each time. So that is kind of, you're saying, okay, this number of milligrams in this form will give you the amount of relief you need and make it very simple and straightforward so it's safer. Where B3 now just says 50 milligrams contained in a variety of different matrices, that might end up producing quite different effects. You know, one of the things we do when we go to Walgreens is we pick up a little